Hello, welcome to today's episode of More Influence and Impact, where we are going to be diving into shining your inner brilliance in your life and in your career so that you can experience all of the joy and bliss that life has to offer. Today, I have a guest, Rosie Guagliardo. Hello, Rosie.
Hi, Celia. How are you?
Great, thank you. Excited to have you on today. Rosie is a certified life and career coach with 16 years of experience in her coaching business. She is the founder of Inner Brilliance Coaching, LLC, and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. She combines her psychology degree, her coaching education, and advertising background to help high achieving individuals create the life results they desire. Awesome. So, and you're also an Amazon bestselling author, correct?
Yes, I was a contributing author to a book, and it was on Amazon bestseller list in several categories, which is really fun.
That is so exciting. And what was the theme and the topic of the book?
It's called Turning Point Moments. So it's when you had a pivot point in your life, and it's a compilation from all these different authors, which were really touching stories. I happened to share about when I got divorced and the way I navigated that with grace, which, as many of us know from any sort of breakup or big change in our life, could be tough. So I kind of simplified it, came up with the 5 things I did to get through it. And I'm so grateful, it ended up being amicable. And I was excited to share that with other people. I think the tips I shared can be used in many areas of our lives. So
Wonderful. I think many of us that find our way into coaching, we have some kind of turning point or big event in our life or something that happens that really shifts us on our path. There aren't a lot of people that wake up and are just, come into life and like, I'm going to be a coach. It's, I think it's something that comes into our paths. And tell us a little bit about how you got into coaching.
I was going to say that's exactly the turning point for me as well. Was after the divorce, I realized I was really responsible for my own happiness. I knew I was, as I think many people think, and we set out in our 20s to go for all of our goals. And then once I realized my marriage wasn't working out, I started evaluating, let me look at other things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized I loved what I did. I was in advertising and marketing for a long time. It was such a fun job. I worked on big brands. The people I work with were like family, but I couldn't see myself doing that for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started exploring. I said, what else is out there for me? And I actually thought about a few different jobs, which many of my clients do, have different career paths. It was everything, honestly. It probably sounds funny, but everything from being an interior designer to owning a bakery to being a coach. And I explored all the options, and I thought the bakery one was a little dangerous, so I did not go with that one. Interior design was so much fun, but there were these moments where I recognized it really wasn't for me long term. And then coaching seemed to be such a good fit because of my background. I majored in psychology at Northwestern, and I always loved the study of the human mind. So coaching built beautifully on that background plus my business background, because think of therapy and psychology-based therapy as really looking at old wounds, where coaching is about moving forward. So I feel like everything I learned in business helped me to understand values of a company, their goals, their objectives, their strategies and tactics. So I decided, hey, I'm kind of already doing coaching for businesses. Let me apply this to people and help them get results like I would any business I was marketing for. But what I found is that most people I knew, at least in my world, were high achievers who were getting results but not happy. or happy sometimes, right? I think overall I had a good life. I grateful for what was going on in my life. But if I was being honest, I felt exhausted and drained, and I thought there's got to be another way to live. So that's when I started the pivot, but it took a little while.
Yes. Yeah. So let's back up to that, what you just said about high achievers who are getting results, but they're not happy. Does that tend to be the client that you work with?
It really is. I tend to work with people who are doctors, lawyers, people in financial services, C-level suite executives in marketing in different companies, business owners who've actually sold the first company and now are looking for the next thing. And the common thread I started noticing was this description I actually read in Harvard Business Review, and now I use it for my clients because it fits so well, was a lot of these people were, like I said, getting results, but exhausted, drained, and stressed out. And Harvard Business Review called people like that insecure overachievers.
Oh.
So I don't know if you've heard of that term, but it seemed to describe perfectly people who are actually attracted to roles like consulting, law firms, all these high achieving people. And these companies and organizations love that because if you're an insecure overachiever, what are we doing? We're trying to be better and better. But it comes from a place of insecurity and not full confidence. I think it looks like confidence. And in some ways it can be, but it's not a relaxed confidence. It's not coming from a place of deep trust in yourself. So I work with clients to help them find that deep trust so they can move forward with relaxed confidence. And something I hear them say a lot when I first meet with them and I have a consultation, I ask a few questions. And one of them is, how would you feel if you achieve what you desire? And they're like, I just breathe a sigh of relief. And it almost never matters what they said in the action, I want a new job, I want this kind of relationship. It's that common theme for 16 years, how often I've seen, I breathe a sigh of relief. That's all they want.
Right. Is the sigh, they want the sigh of relief.
Right. So I kind of think of that as relaxed confidence. Like they're confident, they're smart, they're getting things done, but in a gripping way, perhaps, versus a relaxed, my life's flowing sort of way. So yeah, I show them how to make that transition.
Yeah. And so something comes up where they realize they don't have, it doesn't have to be this way. Right. And what do you see that, is there a certain trend? Like, do they have a divorce or lose a job, or is there some sort of life event, or is it more of like a light bulb moment that one day they wake up and they realize, I've been living my life sort of in this opposite direction of what I want to have and experience?
I don't know if it's so much, it can be, of course, a transition point like that. But sometimes I think they're just at the point of recognizing that if they continue this way, they're not going to be happy. It's too disappointing. It's too heavy. And they have to, and maybe they see me or hear about me, I get referrals. And suddenly it's like, there's a different way to live where you can get results, right? We're still talking about that. I know my high achievers want that and be happier every step of the way. In fact, that's what I tell them we need to shift. I think often, I knew I grew up thinking this, once I get the house, the car, whatever, fill in the blank, the marriage, the partner, I'll be happier. But the reality is, if you can get to a place where you're feeling happier in the moment, you'll start to attract people and situations and opportunities that align with your deepest desires. I joke it's sort of like marketing 101. If you get really clear on what you want, you consistently put that out in the world, and ideally in a compelling way. This is what businesses and brands do, right? They are clear, consistent, and compelling. Then they can attract what they want. That's what starts to shift people from going to this place of forcing results to attracting them.
And that's really, it's funny because you're saying like marketing 101, but it's also manifestation 101 too.
Exactly. Right. Yes, exactly.
Feel the feeling. I love reading The Science of Getting Rich, and and I will listen to the audiobook,
Mm.
and they talk about Wallace Wattles writes about continuously imprinting your thoughts on formless substance, and that having that faith and trust regardless of appearances is how we bring it in. And that can be very difficult for someone who's a little bit more analytical minded, who is like, I need to see the numbers, I need to see the data, and they tend to be a little bit more analytical. And for them to develop that trusting side and that faith and that knowing and cultivating that inner brilliance that you help them to cultivate.
Absolutely, Celia. In fact, I have two programs. One is called Manifesting, Attracting Your Desires, where I walk people through a 30-day program. And it's just 5-minute videos every day, or less than 5 minutes. And I try to address my clients who do have that analytical, logical brain. So that's why I mapped it out this way.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I try to infuse the steps you need to take to cultivate that trust within yourself and trusting the process. And I've seen amazing results, not only for myself, that's what inspired me to create the 30-day program, but also just a recent example, which is kind of fun. It's more of a personal example, but one of my former clients bought the program and we hadn't been in touch in a while. And then we were emailing and she said, I apologize for taking so long to respond. So long, 3 days, back. And for all of us, that seems a long time. I said, well, that's not a very long time. And she said, well, I have a 9-month-old baby. I adopted her after going through your program. I said, what? I'm imagining a wealth of different results that you could get from the program. But she said it really helped her stay in that place of trust and keep her focused on actions that were meaningful, connected to her. And as we know, when you do that, that's when you can manifest with much more ease. But joy has to be a part of it. So yeah, it's that combination. The other program, I just remembered I was saying I had two programs. I call it Embracing Your Feminine, but the reality is it's about embracing feminine qualities to go along with our masculine qualities. People might even say it's like your right brain and your left brain thinking, that creative and analytical. And the people who are the healthiest probably get the results with more ease and joy are the ones who can integrate those two different sides. So I work with my clients a lot on that because I want to meet people where they are. And that means analytical, logical, and we have to infuse it. I joke too, it's similar to my background. I'm 100% Italian. My parents are from Sicily.
Yes.
But I was born here. And so I feel like I learned the American culture, which has a lot of masculine qualities. It's very time-oriented, goal-oriented. And then the Sicilian culture specifically is just really about nature and beauty and family. And so the combination of those two cultures, I think, have helped me to learn how to move forward again, get what I desire, experience what I desire, enjoy it.
Yes. Another analogy I was thinking was like structure versus flow, right? You have the structure and the flow. And I relate to that as well, coming from, I have a music background. And so very creative and lots of performing and concerts. And, there was structure too, but there was also just that creative, and then bringing that into the business world and being very linear and structured, but then also like really craving my creative time to just explore and play. And recently realized that one of my values is playfulness. And then I hadn't really been bringing that into my business because I'm very playful in my daily life. And so we want to weave all of those parts of ourselves. Do you find that, does that happen to your clients where they're sort of like they're one way at work and they're one way at home? And that's a part of that integration that you're talking about?
Absolutely, Celia. That's one of the things I work on. And same for me. I was very playful in my personal life. And I might have mentioned this. There was overlap between building my business and still working in advertising. So I really got to practice a lot of my, let's call them new tools and ways of being or embracing my feminine in the corporate world. And once I started integrating the two, I saw so many results that were just, like I said, I could breathe that sigh of relief. And so I'm trying to think of some clients who, a specific example, but I keep thinking of my experiences where I kept asking people, I was emailing people, hey, I need an answer to this proposal I need to get to the client. And I had all my bullet points, and it was very masculine and logical and linear. Always needed, right? I'm not saying that's not necessary. Then I wasn't getting any responses, crickets. And I knew these people. I knew we were friendly. There was no animosity in the relationships. And they were above me level-wise too. So I was like, how could I respectfully get their attention?
Yeah.
So I changed the subject line to something more playful and honestly vulnerable. And within 5 seconds, they all responded to my email. And that was just a very small example of how I started turning the tide and including playfulness into my business. And what I noticed is, oh my gosh, I could do this on such greater levels, but I always invite my clients to start small.
Yeah.
Don't try to be playful at the big conference meeting with the big client, right? Maybe start in an internal meeting or weave in anything more feminine, if that's not what you're used to, into your business meetings. Same for relationships. So people at home, I don't know, especially I think if you're a mom or if you're in a partnership where logistics start to take over, or a dad, right? Where it's not all playful. We have real things to deal with. I started noticing that people were just really focused on their to-do list, really focused on their, and they were losing the joy that comes with parenting or being in a relationship. So we help them integrate some of these feminine qualities. And I saw people going from almost to getting divorced to staying together, and going from not being able to be present with their children to playing fun games on the car ride to school, which bonded them in a way that wasn't always happening before that, right? And I think if you're a working parent, any minute with your child counts. You want to make the most of it. So yeah, I just saw people making the most of their time. And that's really, I think, when you could get what you desire, but a little bit more naturally and organically.
Yeah, I agree. I really resonate and think about life in the same approach. And I think too, it's sort of going from that, like, life is sort of speeding by and we're just watching it go by, to pausing and slowing down and like really soaking up all that is around us and enjoying every moment. And it requires a shift in our brain chemistry and how what we're doing and how we're showing up. And it's not just at work, it's, around the clock, I think.
Absolutely. And so one exercise I use with my clients I work with is we help uncover their values, what's most important to them, and we prioritize them. Once we do that, that can be applied in all areas of their lives so that that could be their focus. That's where the structure comes in. It's like, hey, you have your top 5 values and we are going to focus on that. But then within that, we don't have to be super structured about how it shows up. We just have to be clear about it, know it, and then live our lives aligned with it. And the way I do it, I mean, I think my clients are amazing and lovely people. So we can't just come out and ask them what their values are, because they'll say, oftentimes they'll say what they think they should say.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest obstacle for a lot of high achievers is we're doing what we think we should do.
Yeah.
Keep using the air quotes. My favorite cheesy joke is to my clients is you need to stop shoulding on yourself.
Yes.
You've probably heard that one before. And it's really so important because it goes back to what we said earlier. We have this definition of success, maybe that we heard from other people or society. And as high achievers, we kept following through. We worked really hard. We got good grades. We get into a good school. we get the good job, whatever all that means. And then I think you get to the point where you're not that satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start questioning, what do I really want? And I see that happening with people in their late 20s. And that's when I start working with many clients. It's when I got my divorce. It's that period where we're starting to shed a lot of our conditioning from our original family.
Yeah.
And we start to open up to what's possible.
Yeah.
And so that's an important time to understand, okay, what really matters to me? Not my friends, not my family, not society. And then how can I live my life aligned with those values?
Mm-hmm. And I agree, like what you were saying about the values and like what we should do. And I've been having some conversations with a colleague recently about values because she was doing an NLP breakthrough process where you go through your values, and she was talking about how like sometimes people will choose their values. My way of saying it would be out of lack. It's sort of like, I don't have this, and so now I'm going to create this value so that I can be it. And it's not an empowered place to create values from. And I did some values work, and then I revisited it, and I came to me like, I think my values are just who I naturally am. Like playfulness is who I naturally am, expressive, deep, intuitive, guided. Like these are all just ways of being that I naturally am. And I'm just like putting words into them to make sure that I can capture it. And I'm curious to know like what your take is on that. Is it like, do you help people kind of like find their essence that maybe they want to bring more of, or share your process with that?
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. So again, I don't come out and ask them because I use a little different language, but I think we're saying the same thing, which is it comes from maybe the ego or their sabotaging thoughts.
Yes.
Which that side of us has values too. It could be stable. I want to be, have financial success. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. It's only a problem if it gets exaggerated and it leads your life to the extent where you're not honoring or valuing your true self from your true essence. So I'll ask a question about, tell me a time when you felt really good or alive in your life. And then they'll share that. And from that, I'll glean their values. And it's so amazing to see their faces when they share, or actually when I share back what I think their values are. Oftentimes they'll say, that's spot on. And I would have never used those words, right? And it's what you said exactly. It's how you relate to others. It's how you express yourself. So for me, when I first did this exercise years ago, I couldn't pick one value. So, I couldn't pick one story that I felt alive in. So I picked two different ones. One was associated with my corporate work, and all three companies I had worked with, Unilever, Anheuser-Busch, McDonald's, separately at different times in my career had asked me to interview with them, which felt so good. Like they thought I was providing quality service, that they thought, hey, you want to interview with us. And I laid out, gosh, I felt really good and alive. Who was I being? How was I showing up in those scenarios? I'm using my hands because I kind of narrow it down to about 5 different qualities. Then I thought, what else was true? And another story that came to mind was being an aunt to my 5 nieces and nephews. And it was so funny, Celia, when I named the 5 values or qualities that showed up in that story, they were the same. Me at my best is the same with my niece and nephew when they were 5 as my client. And what that means is I was understanding, respectful, trustworthy, and playful. I was playful with my clients. They liked that, and they knew I had their back. So again, hopefully I was that way with, I think I call them the kids, that my nieces and nephews also recognized that, which allowed for, I feel like, great relationships, which in the case of my work led to great results.
Yeah. And so you found that red thread from one piece to the other. And that is so poignant how you express that. And I'm sure that when your clients go through the process, that light bulb moment happens for them. And then, because once you define the values, then it's going and experiencing them and testing it out. And so what are some things that you have your clients do once you uncover them, for them to make sure like this is aligned, or just what are some exercises you have them do?
I have them do a couple things. First, how are you honoring them currently? Because you might be,
Mhm.
right? So it's always good to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's important to see, okay, if you did a scale, this is a tough thing to quantify, but if you could quantify it on a scale from 0 to 5, how much are you honoring them? That's always a light bulb moment too. Like, ooh, here I am saying this is my essence and who I am, yet I'm giving it a 2.
Yeah.
Wake up moment, right? So that's one way we look at it. Another way is I have them track their time for the week. They
Oh.
don't always love that one, but I promise it is so helpful. It's like if you were on a weight loss program, the best way to be honest with yourself is to recognize, okay, let's just notice how much
Mhm.
what I'm consuming. So when they start tracking their time, what they notice after a week, we do this together, is, ooh, these activities align with these values and these don't. No judgment, just with that awareness, how can you start shifting things? And then I help them
Mhm.
create an ideal calendar, which I know it can sound tedious for some people, but it's really not. You're just, again, creating the structure. And I kind of think of the calendar as your structure,
Mhm.
but your values and your essence as the flow and creative part, right? You can say, I want to be playful, but you don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to be playful from 7 to 8 p.m., right? It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be like that. But you can say, I feel really playful when I'm out with a bunch of friends. So I think
Mhm.
Friday night's going to be the night that I get together with friends and, post work, just as an example. Create an activity, try to stick with that, time block it in your calendar.
Mhm.
What you'll find over time is you're living more aligned with your values,
Mhm.
which then leads to you feeling happier. And
Mhm.
when you're happier, again, you're going to attract results you want. And there's science to show this. I really look at neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality to come up with the tools and techniques. I
Mhm.
always tell clients, if you just anecdotally think about your life, when you're going through your day and if you're happy and feeling good, don't you typically behave in a way that gets you better results, right? I don't know if we need a whole study to show us this. Like, it happens, right? Naturally. And I know if I'm not feeling great, which is okay, or if there's a tough time or a sad moment, I might not be able to behave or act in a way that gets me the results I desire. But at that point, we need to show ourselves compassion and grace. So,
Mhm, mhm. And so with what you were saying about the calendar piece, it reminded me again, thinking about the science of getting rich and how they talk about acting in a certain way. And so I interpret that, and what you were sharing too is sort of like, if I plan my calendar around my values, and I'm intentional that with my same actions I'm normally doing, I'm going to bring a different energy and a different thought pattern to it. And then my day is going to be experienced differently. And so taking that back to the beginning, what you said, was it, the unsatisfied overachiever? What was the terminology?
insecure overachiever, but you're right. I think they're
Yeah.
not very satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think about the insecure overachiever, and they have their calendar, and what are they doing with their day? Not, the programming is saying this isn't good enough, nothing's enough, I have to keep going. Maybe if I have enough bank in my bank account, maybe one day I'll be happy, right? So all of those thoughts are being poured into their work, and that's what they're experiencing it. And then they have those coworker dramas and the boss that they hate, and maybe their life looks good on paper with their salary and their family, but they're like, why is my life so nice on paper, but I'm so miserable on the inside, you
you
know?
you hit it on the head. So that calendar is created from a place of lack,
Yes.
right? It's our saboteurs creating it,
Yeah.
or sabotaging thoughts. I give it a persona and image.
Sure.
And then when you at your best and you create that calendar, you're setting yourself up for success. You're
Yeah.
priming your mind, right? Because your
Yeah.
mind, you have all these thoughts, which I kind of think of it as a cycle, leads to certain emotions. Those
Mhm.
emotions lead to behavior and results. And you could keep that positive cycle going, right? Because those positive results lead to even higher thoughts, which
Yeah.
lead to emotions that help you behave in a way that get you even better results. So you want that to be going like an upward spiral, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not, to your point, and you're doing things you think you should do, you end up feeling negative. And actually, you brought
Mhm.
up another really important point. Oftentimes, the actions are the same. The things
Mhm.
people are doing
Yes.
are not that different, but
So
it's, you hit it on the head, infused with a different energy.
mhm.
I hate to break it to everyone. I still do my laundry, even though that was not one of the things I wanted on my list. But
Yeah.
I infused it with the energy of self care. I'm like, wait, this is a loving act that I
Right.
get to do. And now I feel, it feels good to do it. And of course, if there's something you really don't want to do, can you outsource it? But
Of course.
just sharing that, you're right. A lot of times our actions or activities might be the same. It's just infused with a new energy connected to your truth and your essence.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you in the laundry, it reminds me of grocery shopping. So I live in Milwaukee. I know you're in Chicago, so
Mhm.
we're both in the Midwest. And so in the Milwaukee area, we have two Whole Foods and they're both totally different. And so the one downtown on the east side, I call it my happy place.
Hmm.
And it's really calm depending on when I go, but they have like all the stuff that I like and great choices. And whenever I go there, I just feel so calm and so happy. And like, I love shopping there. Whereas if I go to Woodman's, which is like, super chaotic,
Mhm.
it's not as nice of a store. And I just feel kind of run down and depleted. And so it's making those choices with what aligns with our values and our vision and that energy and that essence that we want to have in the world.
Absolutely. And you're helping yourself. I talk a lot about energy management with my clients. So I always say it's not exactly about time management. If you do things that bring you joy, like going to the Whole Foods you
Uh-huh.
love, right? That brings up your energy, your
Yeah.
spirits, and then that fuels your next step. And
Yeah.
then when you're at home interacting maybe with your spouse or your partner, that interaction most likely goes well. Then you sit down to get some work done, and again, that's the upward spiral. The key is honoring your truth, your values, your strengths, because I always say energy management, the idea is just be more you. In theory,
Mhm.
what could be easier than being you? it,
Right.
it should be pretty easy, and it can be if we don't let the muck get in the way.
So true. So true. Well, this was a great and delightful conversation today, Rosie. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. Let's let everybody know how they can connect with you. We're going to have your links and everything in the show notes, but tell us where the best social media platforms are to connect with you, and then also where we're going to send people to connect with you, whether they get on your email list or they want to have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and you could find me with Inner Brilliance Coaching. And then I'm also on Facebook under Inner Brilliance Coaching, as well as LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I'm more under my name, my personal name,
Okay.
Rosie Guagliardo. So I'm on those three platforms. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I share tips and tools for your career and for your business and for your life, where I share how can you get results with more joy. There's also other offers, and you get a tip guide. I call it 4 ways to beat anxiety,
Okay.
because that can build up in many of us. So it's basically 4 steps you can take in 2 minutes that help you feel better. So again, raising your energy levels and your
Mhm.
vibration. And then, of course, I'm happy to provide a complimentary consultation. If there's anything you heard here that you'd want to dive deeper in, I'm happy to talk about that, or how you can get results in your career or your life. Again, results with more joy. You can
Mhm.
go to my website and you'll see a way to connect right on the homepage.
Yes,
Set up
and
a
that's
consultation.
innerbrilliancecoaching.com.
That's right. Thanks,
Okay.
Celia. Yep.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll have that link provided. Well, thanks so much, Rosie, again for your brilliance and your insights today. And thank you for all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in. Until next time with more influence and impact, this is Celia.